Writing a book can be a ton of fun, but sometimes figuring out what type of book to write can be a major blocker for someone to get going. And so that's what we're going to talk about right now. I'm going to talk to you about 6 different types of books that you can write and some of the best use cases for each book. And this is going to be one of those conversations that I'm going to have with you that I really want to encourage you to think about. What is the purpose of why you're writing your book? And how can you use your experiences, your knowledge, your expertise to really fit it within the right type of book? Okay. And also think about your writing style. Think about your time availability. Think about how much work you want to put in. These are all going to come into play when I walk through these 6 types of books. Now, I've tried several of these different types of books, and I've worked with people who have done different types of books, or I know authors of these books. And so I've been able to see firsthand what these different types of books can do for a business, for a person, and for the readers as a whole. So let's get right into it with the first one. This is by far, when we're in the nonfiction world, this is by far probably the most common when it comes to writing a book to grow your business, and that is the guide or how-to book. So an example of the guide or how-to book would be Atomic Habits by James Clear, teaching you how to build good habits and break bad ones. It's very much, here's how to do it. My book, Big Idea to Bestseller. This is very much a how-to book, how to write, publish, and launch your nonfiction book to grow your business and make an impact. When books are teaching you something, that is often in the form of a guide or how-to book. And these books are often really, really powerful for those wanting to use their book to grow their business. Why? Well, when you write a how-to book on the subject that you are an expert on, you are giving them a warm-up. You are teaching them how to do X, Y, Z. And then on the back end, you are likely teaching a higher level version of that. For example, if you are writing a book on how to land your first short-term rental, well, you might do keynotes at events on how to land your first short-term rental. You might have a course on that. And so people that are writing how-to books, the best use cases for this are you want to grow your business, you want to establish credibility as an expert, you want to use your book for lead gen, and you want to use your book as part of the customer journey. Okay, this is very, very direct, and it has a strong correlation from your book to your business. And the more specific the book is in relation to your business, the more they will fall into place. Okay, so that is the guide or how-to book. And that's what the majority of the people that we work with like to write about. They combine their stories with their expertise, and that turns into a book that builds credibility, relatability, trust, and guides their reader to take the next step in the customer journey. That is their funnel, that is their business, that is their next thing. Let's talk about book idea number 2. Book type idea number 2 is called the interview book. Now, the interview book, I want to share different types of interview books. Okay, so this is going to get a little deeper, right? But let's have sub bullets here. But the core interview book that I want to share with you right now is an example of that would be Tim Ferriss's Tools of Titans or Tribe of Mentors, or my book, the Elevated Entrepreneur. Now, in both of these books, what makes them an interview book is that you are interviewing somebody else and you are featuring their responses, their stories, their input, along with your own commentary throughout that particular book. So for example, in my book, The Elevated Entrepreneur, I interviewed 39 top entrepreneurs. I interviewed them, I transcribed it, I put what they said in the form of reading interviews, and then I added my own commentary. Every 5 interviews, I have a chapter of my own commentary based on what I found, based on what I learned. I added how I got to know all of these different people to help people improve their network in the process. That is an interview style book. Now, there are also books that are kind of like compilation books, which can be kind of similar, but they're also different. This is when somebody, let's just say John's like, hey, we're going to do a compilation book. And John has 10 people write 1 chapter each. John is the one that organized all of them. They all have 1 different chapter. And then that is a compilation book and they promote it. Everybody promotes it all at once. It can often lead to a high influx on launch. The downside to a compilation book like that is that a lot of authors find that they achieve a bestseller status or that they sell a lot of copies in the beginning. They have to split up everything, of course, with all the other authors. but then it's not as usable for future long-term use. And that's the big difference between a compilation interview book versus the interview book like The Elevated Entrepreneur, Tools of Titans, Tribe of Mentors. And so the best use case of doing an interview style book like the one that I did, and this is what I found from my personal experience. But the best use cases are, I wanted to break into an industry, aka the online business industry. So I found the best people in that industry and I interviewed them, right? And so I was able to immediately expand my network. I got to interview Pat Flynn. I got to interview Lori Harder. I got to interview John Lee Dumas. I got to interview Chris Ducker. I got to interview the holistic psychologist, Dr. Nicole LePera. I got to interview a lot of incredible people, Brock Johnson. I got to interview a lot of these people and get their best pieces of advice. And that was able for me to expand my network. It was something that not everyone else is willing to do. It was something that's not just like, hey, do you want to be on my podcast? It's, hey, I'm writing a book. Do you want to be featured in that? So that's one of the best use cases. Second best use case that I found was that interview books allow you to borrow people's credibility. So for example, if I can say, hey, I wrote a book and this person, this person, this person, this person are in it, and people know those four people, but they don't know me, I'm borrowing those people's credibility to get people in the door. And then I'm able to get to know the readers from that standpoint. But I'm able to attract readers by leveraging somebody else's participation. And it's not that you're using somebody, but that you're able to, hey, I interviewed these people. Here's what I'm sharing. That's how you're able to position it. And then the third use case is that you're able to grow your audience if you do an interview book. And so when I released The Elevated Entrepreneur, I had an amazing opportunity to do a really fun launch event. And so what I did was I did a 4-hour Instagram live launch event on launch day. And every 15 minutes, I had one of the 39 guests on my book. So I had about, I think, 10 or 12 people. And I just kept going over and over and over again. 15 minutes next, 15 minutes next, 15 minutes next. And what was really cool about that was I got all of their audiences to come in. And my audience, we had thousands and thousands of views on that. We had hundreds, if not thousands of new followers, just because I had been on and I was interviewing these people who were in my book. So we were getting book sales, we were getting book awareness, my audience was growing. It was amazing. All right. And so that is the interview book. You have the general interview book, you have the compilation interview book, and then you have some of the best use cases. So I hope that you're kind of seeing, you know what? This might be good. This might not be good. If you're trying to break into a new industry, the interview book could be really valuable for you. I think it's a really powerful thing. It worked well for me. It could work really well for you. Next up is we're going to go to one that's not as common here, but it's the quote book. All right. Now, the quote book, an example of this is 100 quotes that would change your life. That's a book. It's out there. Now, what's really cool about quote books is that they're incredibly easy to make in relation to a guide or how-to book or an interview book. Why? Well, every page is just a great quote. Maybe it's a quote and some commentary, but it's very individualized. There's no story arc. There doesn't need to be a flow. You don't have to add a crazy amount of commentary to it, but it can just be quotes, and every page there's a quote, boom, 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 boom. And bada bang, you got yourself a book. Now, the best use cases of this is different than the how-to and the guidebook. You're not going to say, oh my gosh, I got a quote book. Here's the quote book, and then hire me to be your coach, because the quotes may or may not be directly related, but either way, that reader is not necessarily going to be like, oh my gosh, they're the greatest person in the world. I can relate to their story. I can relate to this. But a quote book still does get your name in front of the right people. So what's really great about a quote book is it can be great for lead generation. It can be incredibly easy to create. And it can be really fun and lighthearted. It can be a great gift to your customers. It could be a great way to get your name in front of other people, and then follow that up with other things that you offer or that you can deliver of value to somebody else. But that's the quote book. Next up is the daily book. Now, I think that the daily book is an underrated type of book. And an example of this, the most popular one, is the Daily Stoic. And basically what the daily book is every single day, there is a page or a passage or a message or a lesson that you're going to read. And this could be anywhere from half a page to a full page to 5 pages in theory. But every single day, the idea is that every single day you're going to read one page, set it down, come back to it the next day. Why is this really valuable? Well, why this is really valuable is you're likely to stay top of mind. So when I first heard of the Daily Stoic, I had a mentor of mine and he was reading it. And he wasn't just reading it, but what he would do is every single day, he would carry this book with him to and from work. Every single day, he would read a page. And he did this year after year. So every single day, he was reading about this book, reading this book, reading this book, seeing the name of the author every single day. Other people read it right in the morning. I have a friend who read this book every night before they went to bed. They would read one page or the daily version of that day's book. And so what happened is you get ton of top of mind. Okay. Now, what's also really great here, and something that I think why this is an underrated thing, is most of you that are listening to this or watching this right now, you have likely written 365 pages of content on one particular topic in your life if you've been doing this for a while. Okay. If that's the case, you can very likely turn this into 365 tips, 365 stories, 365 action items, whatever it is, and you can have one tip every single day and how to do it. You could tell one story every single day. You can break it up by months if you want to segment it. You could 365 social posts, and you can get creative with this and fun with this. So for example, let's say you're a social media manager. You could do 365 days of incredible content. And you could break down a post for every single day. You could break it down by a holiday post. You could break it down by a video post, a reel post, a carousel post. You could have a chapter after every month be, here's how to create a content calendar. Here's how to get more camera confidence. And so now you have 365 daily ideas, and then you have bonus chapters that directly lead to some of the things, the services that you offer, or some of the freebies that you have to build further trust and relatability. This can be very, very teachable. This can be very, very valuable, especially once someone buys in and they read it every single day. Tons of recognition, name recognition, thought recognition, top of mind recognition. So a daily book can be very, very powerful. The fifth book that we're going to talk about, the fifth of six, is The Business Fable. Now, I'll be honest, The Business Fable is one of my favorite books to read, but it is probably the hardest to write for most nonfiction authors. Okay. Examples of this: The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team by Patrick Lencioni. You have The Go-Giver by Bob Berg. You have The Energy Bus by John Gordon. These are fictional stories teaching a business or real world principle. I freaking love this stuff. Here's the best use cases. If you are a really talented writer, this could be huge. And why is this the case? Well, it's a very easy read for the reader. Oftentimes this is story, it's capturing. People are excited about it. It's different than the how-to, the 8 lessons, all these things. And so what that does is that makes it easy to read and easy to remember, which makes it easy to complete, and it makes it easy to do the next thing. Okay? These are my favorite books. These have become my authors. I buy all of their books. Well, so not only am I buying their books, but now I'm like, oh my gosh, I want to get to know them. I want to learn from them, right? That's why I had John Gordon in my 3rd book. I did my interview book because I had read his business fables. I asked him to be part of my book. I interviewed him. We built a basic relationship, okay? So a business fable can be really, really good for teaching a principle that you are then coaching, consulting, or selling something on the back end, right? Showcasing the story that helps people feel relatable, helps people feel that they can do it. And then boom, you're offering something there on the back end that further enhances it for them in real life. And the last type of book here that we're going to go with is a legacy book. Okay, for the sake of this video, we'll say legacy book, memoir. Those are different, but for the sake of this video, I want you to think in that realm. And basically, an example of this would be The Ride of a Lifetime by Bob Iger, the Disney CEO. Okay, and what's crazy about these types of books, what's really interesting is the best use cases here are for people that have reached a milestone or a mountaintop in their career and they want to share what they've learned from it. It's more of their story. And a lot of times, like we're working with someone, he's writing his book for his family. We worked with another author. She was writing her book to tell her kids her story. So sometimes these books are more about giving back to your family, leaving a legacy for your family, leaving my mark on the world. This is what I've done, and I want everyone to know how to do it themselves. This is my story, right? This is my journey through all of this stuff, right? And that can be a legacy book, and those can be very, very popular. So those are the 6 types of books. I hope that you enjoyed this. If you did, I'd love to know, what type of book are you going to create? What type of book are you going to create first? What type of book are you going to create next? I would love to hear it. And if you're interested in learning more about these different 6 types of books and also how to write your own nonfiction book, I have a free gift for you, and that is my book. I'll give you my book 100% free. Just text the word free to 661-669-7363. Again, that's text the word free to 661-669-7363. And with that said, let's go.